But yeah, let's go ahead from here and move into our topic of the week, which I stated earlier is weird quirks, self-imposed handicaps you put on yourself when playing certain games, or awkward ways you like to play games outside of the established rule sets or mechanics. The reason I brought this up as a topic is because for as long as I can remember, especially going back to playing with my best friend, we always did weird things when we played video games. Like, especially because back then, games were a little bit more simple. The parameters were a little bit more simple. And so you would sometimes, if you're just, you rented a game or you bought a game and that's the only game you had for a little while, you would talk about, or you would try to find ways to make it more fun than when it was. So you would do different things to like handicap yourself, or just play it in different ways. Like, I'm only using this gun, or I'm going to try to run through this level, not fighting anybody. I'm just going to try to jump over all these motherfuckers, or whatever it was. And so I've always had these things when I'm playing games where sometimes depending, and it's all dependent on the sort of gameplay and the game itself as to what I would try to do to make it more fun or more realistic or crazy, or I sometimes I try to handicap myself. Sometimes I impose different rules on myself, or I restrict myself from using a certain skill or a gameplay mechanic, which is stuff I'll be talking about as we move through this. But just like almost like a taking it from the standpoint of like when you're kids and you go out in the woods and maybe you have your Nerf guns and you make up your own little games. You know what I mean? Like, even though there's in terms of video games, there's established rule sets and mechanics. Sometimes you just kind of make up your own game within that. And so I was just I wanted to make this a main topic because I feel like a lot of people do this, whether they know it or not, because there's, like I said, there's multiple levels of it. So I have some examples, some of them that relate to me and you, just so we can kind of break into this. Some that we share, which is, like a Grand Theft Auto. When we played Grand Theft Auto 4 back in the day, that game was pretty bare bones at the beginning. So me and you and Magnum, we would just run around and we would go in a strip club and just get in a shootout. And we would try to hold up for as long as we could. And then we would try to break out at a certain point and get in a car and go on and try to see how long we could survive being chased by the cops. And so that was like an initial thing. And then, even in Grand Theft Auto 4, I don't know if you remember this, but we used to do there was this little arena. I can't remember exactly where it was on the map. I think it was near Algonquin, where we would all get cars and we would go in this little arena and we would have a destruction derby, basically a demolition derby. And that was just a weird thing we did. It was not, the game didn't tell you to do this. It was just a made up thing that we did within that game. And, there's examples of this, like what we do in Red Dead now, and things we did in Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, everyone in Red Dead, when it first came out, everyone was doing these fight clubs where it was just a bunch of people would meet up and the game where you would fight each other. And it was basically like a fight club, so it had nothing to do with the imposed gameplay mechanics or systems. It was just like people figuring out weird things to do that were experimental and fun and unique. And I feel like that's the spirit of not only my childhood of just making up games, like, whatever it is you do. Like, you go out with your friends and you're in the woods and let's play hide and seek, but you can't go behind this. You go beyond that tree there, or you can't hide here. And you make up these rules, these rule sets and stuff like that. So what is your thoughts on that, and what kind of things have you done in video games that sort of play on this theme here?
So first thing, I just want to go back to you talking about GTA. Like, we did a lot of stuff like that were a lot of fun, like hours of just like nonsense. Like with the demolition derby, I used to get out and like try and punch the cars so that they would blow up, and of course I just get run over. But like, just nonsensical stuff when we did that. And with Red Dead recently, we were doing like, we'd hole up in a bar and we would lasso everyone that came through the door. Like, all the cops, and the bodies were just piling up when we hogtied them. And like, so much so that they started disappearing. Right. So it was basically, it was
just absolute fucking glitchy chaos.
Yeah.
It was so fucking hilarious.
It was just four of us standing in the bar, like whipping the rope around ready, like cocked to like lasso people, and you just see all these ropes like fly out at the same time, like we're fishing for a body. Here comes the guy through the front door, one person gets them, snags them, another guy comes in, trips over a body, and he's lassoed, and then everyone's hogtied. And then the best part about it is the dialogue and the repetition. Everyone just constantly like,
that's what I was about to say.
You're gonna die for this. You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die for this. Like, it just gets like insane.
You're going to hell. You're going to hell. You're going to hell. The one guy's in the bar and what's it called? Where he would just say that you're going to hell. You're going to hell.
Valentine.
It's this fucking stupid, fucking broken shit. It's fucking hilarious.
And the piano player's still playing the songs like nobody's business. There's bullets flying. Like, there's ropes flying.
Yeah. You could even blow the stool out from under him. He's still sitting on a fucking imaginary stool that doesn't exist.
Yeah, like that chaos. And we did that one time, and another posse came in, and all they did was just keep drinking at the bar while all this was happening. It was like a scene from a movie where there's a huge fight,
and they were getting drunk and passing out, and occasionally they would fucking like step in and like kill one of us or like to get involved with what was going on. It was just the most random cacophony of just like stupid shit
insanity
ever I've seen in a video game.
And we're throwing bodies on the bar table and seeing if we could stack them all up, and it was just like that was like 2-3 hours of nothing. You know what I mean? Like just nonsensical crap that was funny.
Yeah, so do you have any personal examples of things you do in video games like that?
So for me, like since I do play a lot of RPGs and stuff, I hoard money like crazy. Like I don't spend money on anything. I'm not really like that in real life. I just hoard money and I hoard items. So I don't really use like potions and stuff to heal. I don't use.
Yeah, I feel like that's almost a RPG player trope, because
really?
I remember like
really?
I'm totally that way. I play RPGs and like I get to the end of the game and I have like 99 potions of fucking everything. I have like all this money because I've just been hoarding it, thinking there's something better around the bend that I'm supposed to buy, or there's some bigger boss fight where I'm supposed to use all these potions on. And I just end up having all these fucking access like items and materials and fucking money that I don't use on anything.
Okay, yeah, I don't really talk about this stuff, so I like maybe it's more common, but yeah, for sure. Like I just sell everything and get more money, and then when I get to the next town or whatever, I try and buy like the most expensive stuff so I could be buffed up a bit more. So that's one thing.
I do that too, but like I said, I've always been that way. I just hoard everything in a Final Fantasy or whatever else. I'm just like, I'm going to need this later. And then you get to the end of the game, you're like, I should have used that like 20 hours ago.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like even like mana, if you had to use like stuff to like heal or to like shoot like a lightning bolt or whatever, I don't like, that's a resource. And when it comes to like any resource, I hoard it. And it's like, I should just use it, because by the time I would have used it, I would have like saved or gone into town and got it all back anyway. But I don't use it. Instead, I would just attack them. And
you would have made your whole experience easier on yourself.
Yeah,
just used it earlier.
Exactly. So I made it more difficult, and sometimes I do that in boss fights too. When it's like this boss would have been killed a long time ago, instead I'm just like whacking them. I'm using like a wizard character to staff them to death, and he's hitting them for 2, 5.
Yeah, but I think that's that weird thing where like you get to there's been these random games throughout our entire life where you get to like a certain point in the game and you don't have the resources you need. So games have like almost trained us in a way to like hoard shit until we ultimately need it. So it's made us all like fucking scared to like fucking use anything worthwhile until we think we like ultimately need it. And then you get to the end of the game and you have an overabundance of this thing and you're like, oh, well, I guess I should have used that a long time ago.
It's like when your grandparents have gone through war and they just hoard the shit out of everything. And you're like, why are you hoarding this stuff in your garage, Grandpa?
Yeah. So some examples I have, like going back to like PlayStation 1, me and my best friend, we had, when we were playing like the original Destruction Derby, when you have like the races, and everyone does this in a racing game where we drive backwards and just get in wrecks because it's fun. But we would like find these specific points in the map where we could create the most fucking chaos and destruction.
Yes, I did the same thing.
Okay, so yeah, we're on the same page about all this shit.
Yeah.
So we would find these like this cool place, like there would be a huge jump in a map or a huge like ramp, and we would sit at the end of it and we would try to hit cars as they were coming off the edge of it and make them go fucking flipping and flying. And
or a choke point. There'd be like choke points, and you put your car sideways.
yeah, exactly. And another example is that this is the most random pull of my whole entire list here is ESPN Extreme Games for the PS1. And I don't know why. I don't know why I loved that game back in the day. But me and my friend had this whole thing, and I don't even remember the narrative behind it. But we would just pick certain characters, and we would just like all we would do is go after them when we were playing the game. Like we created this whole narrative in our heads of this is a person that needs to get the shit beat out of them, and that's all we would do is go through the entire race and try to find these specific people and like knock them off their skateboard or whatever it is. And like it wasn't even about winning the game; it was just preventing them from fucking getting to the finish line. That's all we cared about is like punching them off their little luge boards or whatever the fuck it was. Their fucking skateboard, and so their bicycle, like kicking them off into a fence. That's all we did was like this one guy. I don't know what he did to us, but he needs to fucking pay and fuck this guy because he has a purple helmet or whatever. And we would just kick him off to the side of the road, and that's all we did was just like we just want to destroy these people. So, do you have any other random examples?
Well, kind of something like that. I love, like, as a wrestling fan, I've always loved the Royal Rumble. I've always loved the concept of like throwing people over something or off of something or into something. So like when you play certain games, like I'm thinking right now off the top of my head, like the original Streets of Rage games, like Streets of Rage 2, they would have like pits in those side-scrolling fighter type games, those beat 'em ups, and you could punch people into pits. So I was always obsessed with like suplexing someone off so that they fall into the pit or something like that. You know what I mean? And that was like my thing. Like some people go nuts for like elevator levels. Like they love the levels where like people drop down. But for me, it's like it's second I see a pit or like a wall or you're on top of a building and there's a ledge, I want to throw people or things off of it. I don't know what's wrong with me to think about that stuff, but I like that. I like pushing people off a mountaintop. Like I do it to Magnum when we play Red Dead. I'll try and like knock him off his horse so he falls off the cliff or something like that, like purposely. And it's just
Well, but my angle on that is like I like the ragdollness of it. Like
right.
I like
I
like when things ragdoll. So I like to throw someone off the side of a building and watch their body hit like 10 things on the way down and ragdoll out and flip flop, and then I'm like, oh shit, oh, and so like like that's how I've been in a lot of games too. Like anything where I can like kick someone off a ledge, like that's why I'm interested to get more farther into the new Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you have that Sparta kick, where you can like, this is Sparta, and you just kick a motherfucker off a ledge and watch his body flop down on some shit. Like, I'm all about that stuff. Where if I can throw you through some like random things and your body's gonna ragdoll out, I'm all about that. Like anything that'll let me do that. Like I enjoyed the original like the flat out games because you could like launch your driver through the fucking window and have him just fucking hit a tree, and that shit's funny because it's just I just want to see this random comedy. It's just hilarious to me. Like it's absurd, cartoonish, like Looney Tunes bullshit where you just knock your character off something and he flops down and his head hits 20 things on the way down, and it's so absurd and over the top that it's hilarious.
Well, that's what makes Red Dead so funny sometimes is the horses and crashing and like just seeing stuff happens. Like those are the funniest things.
That is the absolute best part of that game is the horse crashes.
Yeah.
Bar none. That is the best part of that game.
Like I know we complain and say like the horses can't, like they're shit. You're crashing into a tree, you're falling off it all the time, but it's hilarious when it happens.
Yeah. And so another example I have from back in the day, when I used to play Mario Kart 64 with my friends, we had this one thing that we would do where we played the battle mode, but we would pick that I can't even remember the name of the level. I should have looked it up beforehand. It was like a square arena. It was like a blocky thing where you had like 3 levels.
Yeah.
It was all like square block base, and you would go up these ramps, and there was like 3 levels of it. Well, we would all stay around on the floor. So it was basically like a 4-point race. We would make our own races around the bottom of this arena. And what you would do is when you picked up different weapons, as you went around the corners, you would drop off like the fake like upside down question mark blocks or banana peels or whatever. And then when you came around the corner, you tried to fire off your turtle shells, like your green turtle shells or whatever. And so you would try to make them, you would try to fire them as straight as possible, so you make them bounce back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be coming around the corner, and you might get hit by it, and you wouldn't know it. But so when you had enough people and you kept doing this, like it would eventually get so fucking convoluted and complex. Like
Mm-hmm.
going into the different turns around this square based arena, like you never knew what you're going to fall into. Like there might be so many of these banana peels and like fake blocks that you might just have to run into them, or somebody ram you into them, or you could come around the corner and there would be a fucking green turtle shell that hit you. And we would try to see how long we could survive in these parameters. Like, you know, it's basically like when you lost all your balloons, it's last man standing. It was the ultimate point of Battle Royale. We just weren't fighting each other. We just made this weird, like, race thing where we just all went in circles around this one parameter, and we would put out the things in the corners and fire the turtle shells off. And so it was this weird random game type we made up. There was like just a riff on the battle system and like your typical Mario Kart game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, because everything would collect on the bottom. There was 2 levels that were like that. There's the one you're talking about. I think it was like double deck or something, and then there was the like fort one, where there's like 4 forts, but if you fell to like the very bottom, all the shells and everything are down there. So I could see how difficult it would
and we would
get.
stay on the we would stay at the bottom, and so we would just put everything in the 4. It was a weird thing, and it was kind of stupid, but it was fun. It was the one thing we did randomly just to make our own unique fun out of it. So any other examples you got?
Oh, I got a whole bunch.
All right, let's go.
I know this was your topic, and at first I was like, I don't know if I got anything, but oh yeah, I got stuff. Okay, so we're talking about Nintendo 64, so I got 2 good ones here. So the first one I'll start with is Perfect Dark. So in Perfect Dark, they had bots in it. So that was like a huge change from GoldenEye, because GoldenEye didn't have bots. So what we would do...
Oh boy, Golden Dark is quite the topic. GoldenEye Perfect Dark is
Golden
like,
Dark.
oh man. Yeah, Golden Dark.
When you ran the 2 cartridges together, it's a brand new game. So they had Dark Sims and Perfect Dark, and Dark Sims were like the hardest bots that you can pick. Basically, the second they saw you, you were getting shot by them. So we created a mode called Aliens. So it was based on like the Aliens franchise. And what we would do is it'd be the 4 of us, 1 hit kill, lasers only. So you had like the watch laser. And if you remember from that game, every weapon, well, most weapons had 2 firing modes. So with the watch laser, you had like the regular laser that would shoot out. And then you had kind of like, we just called it like the lightsaber. So you're shooting out like a beam from it, basically. So what we would do is we'd put in, usually 1 Dark Sim was enough. Sometimes if we really wanted to challenge, we would have like 2 or 3. But because there's 1 hit kills on, the second the Dark Sim sees you, you're dead. You don't even know where the fuck it is, and you're dead. So that's why we call it like Aliens mode, because it would just like, boom, attack you and die. So what we would do is we'd pick certain levels that would have rooms with only 1 entrance. And the whole idea was to try and stay in the room as long as possible. So what we would do is 1 person would reach the room. They would hide behind one wall, and they would put the beam out from their watch to block the door, so that if the Dark Sim would come in, it would die instantly, but it would act as kind of like it would act as like defense, so that like people could come in, you could shut it off, and they could run through, and then you'd put it up again so the alien thing couldn't come in. So the comedy came from when you got killed, you're spawning somewhere else in the map, and you have to run back to this room to safety while this fucking Dark Sim's chasing you down. You can't even see it. And on the map, it has like the blip, and it could almost have like the aliens blip when they're like seeing where the aliens are moving, like the bloop, 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 when it's on you, basically. So it's similar to that, and you're running to the room. And to get into the room, we would always make a password. And of course, someone would always fucking forget the goddamn password, right? So they'd run and they'd be coming up and be like, I don't know the password. And then they'd just die because they didn't put the laser off. You've just walked through a laser and died. And you're like, fuck, I got to run back to the goddamn room now. So now.
How does someone not know the password? You're all playing on one console. You can just tell your friend what the fuck.
No. It's panic. Everyone's panicking. Like everyone, like we played this mode last year when I had everyone over because we still play the 64. Everyone was fucking panicking and yelling at each other, like, "Where's the fucking room? Oh my god! Oh, I'm dead again. Where's the what's the password? Go ahead.
What did the password change every fucking 2 minutes? Like,
no,
is there one universal password? You'd be like, the password is fucking rape, and you just like say rape.
No, I don't know. It wasn't me that would forget the password, but eventually the password becomes fucking password. So you're just running up to the door like password, and then they shut it off and you get in. So it just causes this like hysteria, just from the stupid game mode. It's hilarious. It's funny.
I'm sorry. I love this. This is like probably one of the best aspects of this topic. But like, I don't understand how someone doesn't understand the password. Like, you're all sitting in a room together playing this game. You're like, guys, before we start this, we've established a password here. The password is password. How the fuck do you not know how to say password? I don't understand.
Well, the password became password. But we would always...
Did you change it every 2 minutes? Like, we're gonna
no.
Password. The password now is fucking dog. And like, or like, dog eats 1, 2, 4, 8, 7 cow corn.
That's
and like, what? Like, how complicated did it need to be?
We would make it complicated because it makes it funnier. So the password would be something like banana gun or something, like something stupid and random. So you'd be running up to the door and be like, banana, fuck, open the fucking thing, and then you'd be dead because the guy didn't put the thing down.
Well, that's not even that complicated. I'm literally just flabbergasted over here about how fucking simple. Like, how were you playing with special needs kids? Like, I don't understand why this is fucking a problem to get a fucking password. Like, how is this a problem to say one word or 2 words, even 3 words? If you get to 3 words, okay, then you're getting into like, I said the words in the wrong order. I don't understand how you can't just say 1 or 2 words. Banana gun. Like, how is that? How can you forget that? Even if you're stressed out, it's banana gun. Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand.
Okay, you're gonna have to play it with us or something, or just like get your buddies together and play it, and then you'll see. You won't know what's going on. You'll be stricken with fear. I swear to God. I know it's funny. It's funny, but it's hilarious.
No, it's fucking hilarious. And honestly, that's fucking hilarious. But I don't understand how you can't memorize a few words. It's not like we're memorizing fucking launch codes for a nuclear launch. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need special. Like, we got to turn a key together, and we got to memorize Alpha 2 Tango 4 cow chicken. Like, I don't understand. Like, if it was that complicated, like, that would be funny. I don't understand how you can't memorize banana gun. It just doesn't make sense. But all right. So the next thing I was going to bring up. This is kind of just a random thing I thought about lately. Just try to a more relaxed sort of example of this is like when I was playing The Crew. I played The Crew very briefly on PC. And that, that's a racing game where you have all these objectives, and it's like an open world Ubisoft racing game. But my favorite thing to do in that game was literally just to drive around and listen to music. So I would just get in my car and like go into the first person like dash cam view and just like, because playing I played a lot of racing games on the 360. I used to love the 360 functionality, just being able to listen to your own music. Like, you put your CD in, you would rip your CD to the Xbox 360 hard drive, and you could play any racing game and listen to the music you want to. You could do that with any game. And I used to love playing racing games, like listening to my own music, because it kind of got you into the flow of it. And so I remember playing The Crew just a handful of times, like 2 or 3 times, where I would just, because that was a huge open world game, and all I wanted to do in that game was just like, I'm going to drive from New York to California, and just like, I'm going to try not to get any wrecks. So I tried to like drive like more like you would in real life, where you weren't trying to like speed, but I would like try to like drive faster than normal, but still try to kind of obey the traffic laws, or at least not try to get any wrecks. and I would just listen to my music and like drink some beers or whatever else and just like chill as I was like going across country, like making a cross country trip and just listening to some tunes in my car. And so that was a thing I did for like a few nights, and that was just like a weird thing. Like only that game would allow me to do that because when I was growing up, when I was younger, I used to do that all the time where I would get really high or something like that, and just drive around because I lived in a small town, and I would go on some back roads and listen to music, and so that had a connection to me in that way. And so like when I was playing that game, that was like my favorite thing to do in the crew was just to like drive. I don't know, man, I'm just gonna drive to California, and it's a fictional world. It's not like one to one, but it had a cool representation of the U.S. in the first crew game. So that was a thing I did that was like weird outside the parameters of what the game rules were. So I'm gonna throw it to you for other something crazy that you did.
Okay. No, it's pretty cool that you like drove normally in a racing game. I think what was it, Fuel? I did that with Fuel where I went from like one end to the other.
Yes.
And that was
But they
fun.
even but they had achievements
Yeah,
for
they
that
did.
where
They
you would
did,
get to
yeah.
one part of the map to the other. Yeah, same thing. I did the same thing then, but it was fun. Like I would get on a dirt bike and just be like, all right, I'm at this corner of the map. I'm gonna fucking take a dirt bike through all these fucking post-apocalyptic landscapes and ramp some hills and jump some jumps, and I'm gonna be listening to my favorite bands along the way. And it was just a relaxing thing in a way because there were no consequences to it. You know what I mean? There was no, even if in the crew I got in a wreck, it's like I don't know, you just keep going. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like it's more of a relaxing thing in a way. Like it wasn't even about just playing the game and like being in a race or anything. It was just like this game lets me do this one weird thing that like is not the point of the game itself, but like that's what I'm able to do within the parameters and the mechanics of the game. Like and you can just play the crew and just drive all around the world and not do anything of meaning if that's what you wanted to do. I mean, that's like I said, it's dumb, and that's not why I played it or why I even wanted to play it. I played it as a racing game, but like I said, I loved how open it was, an open world racing game. So in between the things that you were supposed to do, you could just drive wherever. And so yeah, I mean, it's like you said in what we call it, Fuel, where yeah, you can just maybe you're trying to achieve an achievement and you go off somewhere else. So another thing, riffing off that real quick, that I wanted to say was that like talking about Fuel, there was this. So the reason why I initially bought the first Dishonored game was because I mean I saw it and it looked cool and I was like, yeah, I'll probably pick that up and play it at some point. But the two things that made me buy that game day one was I heard beforehand that there were two achievements, which were get through this game without being seen and get through this game without killing anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard that was a thing you could do in that game and it was an achievement, I was like, I'm buying this. I'm buying this right now. That's how I'm going to play the game. And it's like this ultimate stealth mode thing where like, dude, trying to get through that game without being seen. And granted, I had to save scum the whole way through to do that. And I think I fucked up on the not being seen one. There was one level I needed to go back to and redo it, and I just never did. But I made it through basically the entire game without being seen, except for the one level. And then I made it through the game without killing anyone, and that was an achievement. And so that was just a weird way because I didn't use any of the abilities, any of the skills that you needed, even things that would have made that easier for me. Like I just wanted to play it. Like I used Blink, which is the thing where you can like teleport short range and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't use any of the tools and aspects, and I just bought the game and played it for for those two achievements alone. And so that was my unique experience with that game, where I set these handicaps to myself because you can get online, you can see all these videos of like people like really making this fucking symphony of destruction in that game, where they're using all the abilities, all the skills, all the different things like blinking through stuff, throwing out random grenades, and like you can really actually do this really cool move sets on as far as like if you're just trying to take down enemies. But no, like I play that game not trying to fight anybody. I was a complete pacifist. I just wanted to be in the shadows. I wanted to play that game like ultimate stealth. And so that was my experience with the first Dishonored. And I played the second game, and I kind of try to play it that way for the most part. Even though I experimented more the second time, I didn't really want to get that strict as far as my play style. But that was like a weird way in which I played that game, and like I'm saying, most people that play Dishonored don't play it that way. So that's a unique experience. Did you play Dishonored at all?
I did. I don't have the patience for the stealth stuff. Like even in Metal Gear, I'm horrible at it. Like I try, but it's really tough. But I have a friend who actually got both of those achievements too, and he was telling me years ago like how hard it was because you can accidentally kill somebody. Like they'll just fall or slip or like you have their
Exactly,
body. You have their body. You knock
yeah,
them out, and then you put them somewhere, and then they like die because they fell.
yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Like it was insanely difficult to try to play that way. And like I said, I didn't get the one for not being seen or I can't remember not killing someone. I don't remember, but it was one of the two of those because, like I said, I fucked up on one level. But yeah, like you could hide a body somewhere, and maybe there would be rats that would come and eat it,
Yeah,
like
I
because it
remember
was
that.
so, so there were different parameters. Like you could throw it off into the water somewhere, and maybe some like fish or whatever would come by and eat the body, and then that would count as a kill. So it was really crazy. Like you had to keep moving forward in a way to where like the game wouldn't store those bodies
Hmm.
somewhere. You know what I mean? Because like I said, with the rats were the biggest problem where they would come through and eat a body that was just like hidden somewhere. So you could just like dump a body in a dark corner somewhere. With maybe rats are going to come by and eat it. Yeah. So and especially toward the end of the game, as far as like not being seen, when you had these huge like mechanical thing, like almost Strider looking things that were like roaming through the environment, like trying to avoid those fucking things and trying to figure out clever ways that you could avoid them without being seen was fucking crazy. And so you just had to find like clever way. You almost had to bullshit your way through certain levels, like where you would just almost break the game in a sense, not really break it, but just like do things that out completely outside the realm of what you would normally do if you were playing that game.
Hmm. But they built
Uh,
they probably built the game to have that in it too. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, if you're gonna
So
have those achievements, yeah,
yeah,
if you're gonna make a stealth game, like these are the people that came off making like Thief and stuff like that. Like they're making stealth games for like the ultimate shadow dudes that want to play this game. Like I'm not gonna be seen or heard from. I'm not gonna kill anybody. I exist in the shadows. You know what I mean? So
hmm,
there's that, and that's how I typically play a lot of stealth games. Getting into a sort of side topic here, as far or not a side topic, but just breaching out into the sort of mechanics of some of these stealth games because I like them. I don't play a ton of them. I wish I would have gotten more invested in the Splinter Cell games back in the day. I played a little bit of Thief and some other stealth games, but yeah, there's certain games where I'll challenge myself on. I just want to do the ultimate like I don't use any of these like so mechanically things that I restrict myself on as far as getting into like the handicapping part of this topic is like I'll restrict myself as far as certain games and what I can do. So like even in Dishonored, there's like a thing where you can like see through walls, so you can see the enemies through walls, and I never use that stuff. I hate it. Like I won't use that stuff in any game. I won't use any mechanics or skills that let me see through walls. I won't use anything that lets me tag enemies. Like I hate the tagging enemies, especially in like stealth games. Because it basically just lets you just sit there and wait until someone walks out a doorway.
hmm,
Like you always know where a enemy is, even if they walk into a room that you can't see. Like I like treating it as like it's a completely realistic scenario. And if I let this dude walk into this room, like I I can't know where he's at. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. He might walk back out. He might walk across the room, go out the other side. But it's up to me to adapt and sort of improvise on what the scenario is. Because like other than that, like if you tag an enemy and you're sitting in a little triangle, there's a little dot above their head, then you always know where they are, and then you're just playing in easy mode at that point. You know what I'm saying?
hmm.
And I can't stand that shit. Like I don't want to play any game. Like I think that's the way most people play through these games when they just give you when the game presents these mechanics and options to them up front. And I feel like this is a thing that's like kind of ruins stealth games and a lot of these or the stealth mechanics of a lot of games where you can just tag enemies and you see where they're at times. Like I like the random element of just like I'm going into this building and like I saw this guy, I saw this guy, I saw that, and if I didn't kill them, that was I wanted like I'll sit up on a rooftop and look and see like maybe how many guys there are, and then I try to go in and I try to adapt, improvise, and overcome as the meme goes. But like I like that sort of random element to it, and like I said, I'll save scum, but like I don't want to just know where every enemy is because in real life, if you were like really trying to stealthily take this shit, like you wouldn't have those same options. You know what I mean? And so I try to make these like stealth games like even more realistic than they really are sometimes because I want that like random like I need to just be listening to the sounds and the stuff around me, the environment, and like I want to just like sort of slowly creep up and I know this guy might walk out this door and I can grab him real quick. I can hide his body and then go back in. But I'm not just going to sit there on a rooftop and be like, all right, I'm just going to tag all these enemies. And then this guy's going to walk out the door. I'm just going to shoot him in the head. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like to play games that way. So any game this has been a trend in gaming, I think, for the last 6-7 years where they've just made, even going back to like things like the original The Last of Us, where like Joel for some reason has some like kind of Sonic I can see through walls effect. I'm like, why would I use that in this game? Like it doesn't make sense in relation to all the other mechanics and things that you've set up. And so I just don't use mechanics that are tagging enemies or I can see through walls. Anything that makes it super easy and super gamified, I don't use that. So what about you?
I'll do it in some games. So like the Batman games, I don't mind doing like using the I can't remember what it is, but it's like the visor to kind of see through the wall a little bit. I don't mind doing that stuff because I feel like well Batman has the technology, he would do that, you know what I mean, to his
Yeah,
advantage.
exactly. But that's contextual, and that feels like it would be in character. That's in
Yeah.
the spirit of Batman. Yeah, yeah,
But we played in the past year Ghost Recon, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon, and that's a prime example of a game where you can literally just throw your remote control thing, I forget what it's called, a drone up in the air and tag everything, and then sit up on the hill and snipe people. And yeah, it is kind of boring. It is. It's kind of silly.
yeah,
I
yeah.
like
So
the map. I like knowing like if someone's coming, like it shows like red that somebody's going to attack you, whatever. But I don't really care for the tagging. Like here he is, there's an arrow right above his head. Like I don't like that crap. But I think that stuff started. Like the first time I ever saw it was one of the Battlefield games years and years and years ago, where you tagged people. It might even been
yeah,
before that.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was the thing I was going to eventually talk about was Ghost Recon because I played that with my best friend, and he's the person that I made up all this weird random gameplay handicaps and mechanics and just weird rules that we would do, and so we had played Ghost Recon Wildlands on PC together. We had been playing that for about a year on and off, and yeah, we did that thing where we turned the HUD completely off. We turned all the enemy tagging. We played that game like legit, like realistic. Like we're fucking two motherfucking, fucking Navy SEALs, motherfuckers, like sneaking in. Like we're crawling on our bellies. We're going in. We're gonna post up on this cliff, and we're gonna look at and take in all the environment, find all the enemies, and like adjust our method of approach based on the knowledge that we had at the time. We don't want to see who's alerted, who's coming in on this. Like we want to have to play it like if we were real people doing this shit. Like we're trying to make it the most realistic game possible within the game's parameters by mostly just turning off everything. And so that's how we wanted to play the game. And it's it can be redundant, and you could like spend like hours trying to take over one base. Whereas if you just use the gameplay mechanics that the game wants you to use, you can just beat it in like 15 minutes at most. And so we would, yeah, but that's a thing that we would do. I mean that's where we found the fun in the game for us is because the game had all these deep mechanics and systems and abilities to customize our HUD, and we can turn this and that off. And so we could eventually make the game we wanted to play versus the game that maybe even the developers or the average person would play. And so it's a different experience than what those people would have versus what we had, because we were trying to play like ultra hardcore. I mean, even in the last year, like toward the end of the year, they added this ultra hardcore mode where like if you die, your character resets basically, like all your skills and everything you unlocked. So that was like but that's like a completely different level that we weren't even trying to play on. We were just trying to make it like we were like for real Navy SEALs, like rolling in on this base, and we want to take it like ultra serious. You know what I mean? Like where every kill mattered. Anytime we took someone out, like we had to make sure that like they couldn't be seen by anybody else, or we could hide the body. And so we played it that way. But I'm saying I don't think that's most people's experience with that game. And so, like I said, that's just kind of a weird twist on like how me and him play games sometimes, and how if a game creates these parameters or these options enough where you can have your own fun within it, then you can almost make your own game within a game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And we did that with Twisted Metal Online, Twisted Metal Black.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the last thing. Not the last thing necessarily, but one of the other things to move into is our connected history with Twisted Metal Black Online and that community and the game types we made within that. Like because that game was just a straight death match. It's like a free for all death match game, and there were different. I mean, it actually had a lot of options that you could do back in then that were really fun. Like everyone just plays this one car, or they had relics, and they had like you could restrict it to different. Couldn't you even restrict it to just like yeah? There's things like power missile only match. You could play like manslaughter with power missiles only, and that would be the parameters, right? Don't you
Mm-hmm.
remember that?
Yeah, there's like it wasn't amazing, but there was enough options there to kind of throw out these like handicaps or different game modes, because we even came up with like last man standing. And to give some context to listeners, Twisted Metal Black Online was on PS2, and you had to get the network adapter separately to like connect to your PlayStation to get online. And when you're in the lobby, there was no chat, there was nothing. You couldn't communicate with anybody. And then one of the people who worked on the game actually leaked us a code that you could punch in when you were in a lobby room, and it would unlock a hidden chat function. And that blew the game wide open for us, because now we could all communicate. Because before we were all communicating on the Twisted Metal Alliance website, and then going online to play together, and weren't talking. Like we weren't using like Skype or anything. Like we weren't talking. So when we had
Yeah,
the
yeah.
chat room, that's when it blew up, because then we could start talking and saying like, okay, let's do this, let's do that. So when we developed modes like Last Man Standing, then you could communicate like, okay, you can only use these cars, and this is how many lives you get, and this is what happens. These are the teams if we did team games like Team LMS and stuff like that. So the chat room, if we didn't have that, I don't think a lot of the creativity in game modes that were created out of it would have happened. Like we also had Protect the King, which was, it's hard to explain, but it was a team-based thing where each team had a king, and they had like a queen, a jack. I forget what the roles were, but basically only those people could fight each other, and you had to end up
Yeah,
like killing the king
it
or
was
whatever.
basically like a card game rules. Like you had a king, queen, jack.
Ace, I
Oh, was
think,
there an
or
ace? Was there an
Joker.
ace?
I forget. I
Or
forget.
it was Joker. It was Joker, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Wasn't
something
Joker
like
like the
that.
one thing? Yeah, and there's like pawns that were like the basic people. Yeah, I didn't play it that much because every time the guys had those game types set up for certain times, I was unable to play. So I only experienced that a few times. How many times did you play it with them? Did you play it much?
Um, it was in like the back end of like my career in that game. Like I played that game for about 5 years. 3 years was like almost all the time, and then year 4 and 5 was like off and on here and there. And it was in like, I think like the end of year 3, maybe beginning of 4, when that Protect the King mode came in. So I don't remember it too well. And like if we had Rhodey on, like Rhodey would like tell us all about it, because I think he actually like masterminded it, or at least was like integral to creating that
Yeah,
game mode.
I don't remember where it came from. And
But
I
it's
don't
so
like
complex. It's just a
we're gonna
complex
have
mode.
yeah, yeah, at some point we're gonna have a deep, rich history about the history of Twisted Metal Black Online. But one thing I want to say too is that like so back then there was no options for team play. It was all
Yeah.
free for all. So you had to, if you had your clan, if you had your group, and you were gonna go off against another group, like you had to just like restrict yourselves to like not attacking other gamer tags or other people that were on your quote unquote team.
Yeah, because
You know what I
things would
mean?
lock
So
on. Things would lock on to anybody.
yeah, exactly. You had these like homing missiles and all this other stuff
The
that would lock onto
specials.
enemies. So you had to play restricted and reserved automatically. And then on top of that, when you start layering on these different rules, well, then that just made it that much more complicated. Because I remember, in the early days when people tried to make clans, even though there's no clan functionality, there's no team functionality in that game, we would all like try to roll together, and you would just try not to fire off weapons that might hit your teammates. And it was a back and forth. Like sometimes it worked out, but sometimes it didn't. Because the game parameters didn't allow that. So we created all these in depth game types and modes and stuff that had nothing to do with what the original intent of the game
Hmm.
was.
Hmm.
And so that was what was crazy about it.
Now,
Even just thinking about it in terms of like two teams, like a team deathmatch. Because even sometimes you would get a bunch of TMA people on, and we would all just have this like unwritten rule. We're not like going to fight each other, and we just team up on all these other people, and they wouldn't know what's going on. You know what I mean? Like they had no chance. But like that, but that's what we just did because that was the platform we were given. These were the parameters and options that we were given, and we tried to make the best of it.
mhm. So if I'm remembering correctly, wasn't like Team Last Man Standing the one where it was only like people were dueling, and then when you're almost dead, you would go back and tag in one of your teammates. So your teams were like in a certain area, they weren't fighting, and you had to basically like a wrestling match go to that corner and tag in somebody else to come in and fight whoever.
Yeah. There were different. Like I said, I don't want to get too in the weeds with Twisted Metal because we're gonna have an in depth conversation about that in the future. But yeah, there was something like that. I
But
mean, I
that's
think there
crazy.
was. Yeah. No, it's insane. And like I said, this just gets back to what we're talking about of like making up our own game modes, our own parameters within the confines of what the developers put out there. And so another thing, just real quick, that I meant to mention earlier, as far as a thing that me and my best friend did when we were playing games, is we would do what's called going crazy. So this spawned from the original Halo when we would be playing co-op as 2-player co-op in Halo, the original Halo, and we after we got through the game, we used to play that game co-op just like every day. We would just blow through certain levels, the entire campaign just over and over again. And so eventually we would start making these like rule sets and different things we would do just to have fun. And one of them was what we call going crazy. And so like it would almost be like this thing where we would be going through an environment, we would be getting into shootouts, and one of us would die. And then so the rule was that like if your teammate died, if your bro died, you would have to go into berserk mode, and we call that going crazy. So you would have to like just like go crazy. You would have to move forward and just like be completely aggressive instead of playing like tactically and trying to hide back. Because in Halo you could like drop back eventually if you ran back far enough in the level, you could spawn your teammate back in. So you could like leapfrog and have your teammates in there all the time if you just drop back far enough every time your teammate died. But we just made this rule where it's like, no, that's too easy. Like if you die, if your teammate dies, if your bro dies, you got to move forward. It's called going crazy. You go into berserk mode and you just go absolutely berserk and you start killing motherfuckers and you try to see how long you could survive. And most of the times you didn't, like 90% of the time you didn't survive it because you're just being a complete fucking retarded idiot playing the game at that point. Because you're just like, running in and like shooting people and like shotguns and throwing grenades and like, I'm going to kill as many motherfuckers as I can before I die. and then that became like a thing where we carried that throughout. Sometimes throughout the years, like every once in a while, we'll just be playing a co-op game randomly, and one of us will die and be like, we'll be like, time to go crazy, bro. And then the other guy will just go crazy where he's like, all right, I know what that means. And we just fucking, the other guy has to fucking move in and not like try to preserve, like not try to save the situation, like not try to preserve it for the fact that like I'm trying to get through this, or I want you to respawn with me. Like, nah, bro, you got to go in. And if, like whatever happens, maybe if we have to play this situation or this scenario over like 10 times is fine, but like it's just a fun thing we do every now and then. So
Mhm.
that's just like another weird thing. So do you have anything like that with your friends where you have like this like common thing that you all do when you play a game together?
Yeah, we sort of did. We sort of did. I don't know. I'd have to think more about it. But I have like another example of something that like a bunch of us did together in a game called Total Annihilation. It was an RTS game back in the mid 90s. So basically, what that game was all about was just pumping out all these robotic units and mashing them into like a demolition derby, and just explosions and pieces of them are flying all over the place. So the game had a unit cap of 500 units, and you think like, okay, 500, that's a lot. When you actually see it on screen, it's not that much. Everything's kind of overlapping. It's just together. So if you can kind of think of like StarCraft, and you have all like the Zergs and the Zerglings running around and stuff, it would look like that, but just a lot more units on the screen. So what we wanted to do is we wanted more units, and you could patch it, and you can actually go into like the files and change the unit cap. So we would change it to like 1500 units. And back in 1997, our computers could barely handle like 1500 units. So what we would keep doing every few years is we would have a LAN, and we would fire up Total Annihilation and increase the unit cap to like 5,000, and let's see what happens. And eventually it gets to the point where the computer can't handle all these units on the screen at once, and it would like shut your computer down, or the game would freeze, or something crazy would happen. And we actually did this a few years ago on modern day computers, and we bumped it up to like 10,000 units. And of course the game breaks. The game's breaking because the game itself cannot handle, like, it can't render this
Yeah,
many
so
things
I
on the
love that
screen.
because you're just literally trying to fucking
Yeah,
break it and add chaos to it. Yeah, I love it.
that's what I'm all about. I'm very much an agent of chaos. I like to see like, where can we break this? How can we glitch this? Like, let's see how far this will go before it gets fucked. And Total Annihilation is one of those like science experiments that we do just to see, like, can we get this many units? I don't care how long it takes to build them. Like, we can let the game run for an hour and 2 hours until we get this many units. I don't care. And then just mash them together and see if the like computer just explodes in our house. But like, it's just like a
Yeah,
funny thing that we did.
that's weird because I remember letting. This is tangentially related to what you're saying, but I remember used to having. I would build this base in these units in Command and Conquer on the PlayStation 1, and I would just leave the console on for days, like letting my base just like sit there and like hold its own and like generate like funds and stuff like that. So I would have a campaign running for like days, and it wasn't even about like actually playing it at a certain point. It was just like about, well, this is what I got to do to keep this fucking base going. You know what I mean? It's like it's like almost like a mobile game
I was
in
gonna
this day
say,
and age
yeah,
where you
yeah.
where you step away from it and you come back or something like that. But yeah. No, continue because your story is way more interesting than mine. This is funny.
Well, it's like, it doesn't go any further than that. It's just basically, when we did it a couple years ago, like, the computer could handle it. It's the game. The game itself cannot handle it anymore. And there's been games that are the successor of Total Annihilation, like the Supreme Commander series and Planetary Annihilation, which both games to me aren't as good as the original one, but those ones have like hard level or hard unit caps, so you can't go over a certain amount. I don't know. It's a nostalgic thing. We all love the Total Annihilation game, so it's just funny to fire it up and like, let's see how many units we can get going on modern day computers. So I hope to continue this and do it again in like another 10 years, and then 30 years from now, let's see if we can go even further if it's even possible, if the game will even run on those computers at all.
Well, is that an actual thing that could happen? I mean, I guess it is, but like I was just thinking, like the most recent example, like literally from today, that came to my story about how Beat Saber players and Steam VR are like Steam had to update their VR thing because like people gotten so good that the game couldn't keep up. Like the peripherals of the VR couldn't keep up with how fast players can move, so they had to like update it just to keep up with the fact that like people have gotten so good at it. So like it's kind of what you're talking about. Like technology evolves. Like I've heard stories of like technology evolving or like people bringing over a game to a specific or you know they've updated their computer or whatever, and it makes the game run faster and different, and so it almost changes the gameplay experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just like random variables that you don't account for, and usually it's like man-made, right? Like the man can do whatever they want and come up with anything. You know, like the game is only set to do this, but usually you can push it a bit further, and that's kind of what we've been talking about, like the different game modes and handicapping yourself and restricting stuff and whatever. So it's you make your own fun. You test and do science projects and stuff like that.
But I think that's the I don't know. Do you have anything else to add? Because I kind of have a final point about this that I wanted to make. So, is there anything else you want to talk about in this space?
No, you go ahead, and then I'm going to recommend a game mode.
Okay, so what I was going to say is like the ultimate achievement of this entire topic to me is that the fact that like or what's fun about like this topic and doing this in games, and why I think a lot of people want to do this is like in real life a lot of people like we want to test the boundaries, we want to test the parameters of game system and things. Sometimes you want to handicap yourself, sometimes you want to like discipline yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like yeah, I could go out and eat cheeseburgers every day of the week because they would taste good, but no, I want to restrict myself because that's not beneficial to me. You know what I'm saying? Like you want to do things to make yourself a better person or to have a different experience with life. And so like, it's fun with video games where you can like mess around within the parameters of what the developers have set for you. And sometimes those things are almost more fun than what the developers intended, in and of themselves. I mean, because we certainly made more fun with Twisted Metal Black Online than the developers ever intended that game to be. So that's kind of the beauty of games overall, though. Like that's what's fun about games. Like I can watch a movie over and over again, and maybe I can take certain things away from the story elements of it or the acting or whatever. But like that's just one. It's a static thing. It's only one thing. But this is why games are fun, because like my experience with a game can be completely different from yours, and some of that can be based around the people that I'm playing with and the things that we come up with to do within those parameters.
Yeah, you should tour around North America and preach that message. It's very nice.
Yep. I am the gospel. I am the preacher. I am the Lord and Savior of gaming, and that's what we're gonna tell everybody moving forward. We are the new and the ghost of gaming. That's what we are. We're gonna tell you how to think. We're gonna tell you how to believe. We're going to tell you what you need to know. We're going to tell you the experiences you need to have with these games. Because right now what we're doing, people, we're telling you experience you can have outside of the games as they are presented to you. Why should you have the experiences the developers want? That's bourgeois. That's fucking bullshit. You want to have some real experiences? Well, have the experiences we're telling you can have. Experiment. Play around. Don't do the things that everyone wants you to do. If you live your life the way everyone wants you to live it, if you live your life the way all these developers tell you should live in these video games, you gotta go to this waypoint here and do this next story point objective. Why? No, I don't have to do that. I can go off and fucking run my horse off a cliff for 3 hours. That's more fun. Because why shouldn't it be? If I wanna go fishing in this game, why shouldn't I do that? If I want to create a password system with my friends where they can't remember the passwords, that seems more fun. You know what I mean? Your friends can't remember 3 words, that seems more fun. But that's what you can do. That's what you need to do. And so that's the beauty of video games, is you can do whatever you want with them. And sometimes you can be dumb, and sometimes it can be fulfilling and life changing. But that's the platform that video games provide.